I never got an invitation. Nothing showed up in my mailbox, no text buzzed on my phone, and not even one of those half-hearted family group chats with cheesy gifs and forced excitement popped up. Still, I found out anyway. My aunt blasted the save the date all over Facebook. Can't wait to celebrate Mason and Lily. The big day's almost here. That's how I learned my own brother was getting married and I wasn't on the guest list. At first, I didn't do anything. I didn't yell, didn't break down, didn't even pick up the phone to demand answers. I just sat there on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, scrolling through every comment like I was supposed to crack some secret code. I waited a couple of days before I finally asked about it. My mom answered when I called. I kept it straightforward. I saw the post. Is it true? She didn't skip a beat. Sweetie, it's a small wedding. Only the people who make the couple feel at peace. That word, peace, felt like poison in my mouth. I asked, so what do I make Mason feel then? She let out this soft, almost mocking laugh, the same one I'd heard since I was a kid and got too emotional when Mason ruined my sketchbook. You know how it is, Harper. You're a lot. You take up space. Mason just wanted things to be simple. I bit down on the inside of my cheek hard. Hey, I said. You could have just told me. And then she dropped the real bomb. Honestly, Harper, it's better without you there. She said it like she'd been waiting for the chance. I smiled even though she couldn't see me. Great, I told her. I'll be in Portugal that weekend anyway. There was a pause. Portugal? And you just booked it? Well, that seems a little much. No, I replied, steady as ever. What's extreme is raising a daughter and then pretending she doesn't exist when it's time for family photos. I hung up. Didn't wait for her to say anything else. Didn't give her a chance to take it back. Instead, I opened my laptop and actually booked myself a one-way, non-refundable ticket to Madeira. My name's Harper Lane, and wherever you're watching this from, stick around because the day they decided I didn't belong was the day I stopped waiting for permission to be seen. The wedding wasn't the beginning. Being left out was just the final, shiny version of something I'd been living with forever. I was always too much. Too loud when I got excited, too sensitive when I cried, too outspoken when I pointed out what everyone else ignored. And my brother Mason? He was the golden child, the calm one, the family's anchor. He could skip my birthday and still get praised for being busy. If I forgot to call back, I'd get guilt-tripped for days. I was always there for him. When he broke his ankle during finals, I cooked for him, helped him study, made sure he passed. When his last girlfriend cheated, I stayed on the phone for hours while he vented. When he lost his job, I fixed up his resume and even got him an interview with my boss. But I was never the easy sibling. When I got promoted before he did, it was, don't rub it in. When I left an abusive relationship and cut contact for 6 months to heal, I was being dramatic. The hardest part, I bought into it. For years, I convinced myself that if I could just be a little quieter, a little less, a little easier, maybe they'd finally let me in. But every time I gave up a piece of myself, they wanted more. And when I finally stopped, when I started therapy, set boundaries, said, no, I'm not covering for him this time, the cracks turned into walls. I wasn't family anymore. I was just friction. And friction doesn't get an invite. So no, the wedding wasn't the real betrayal. The betrayal was all those years of being rewritten. The decades where I was cast as the overreactor, the outsider, the difficult one just because I dared to say, this hurts. The wedding was just the moment they finally said it out loud. We like it better without you. Fine by me. I'd spent enough time trying to squeeze into a frame that was never meant for me. I wasn't going to shrink myself one more time just to fit in a family photo. Let them have their perfect little wedding. Let them keep their tidy story because I wasn't going to be the background anymore. I'd be in Portugal, grinning in every picture. There was something freeing about packing a suitcase without anyone else's expectations stuffed inside. No gifts to buy. No dresses picked out to keep the peace. No backup outfit in case someone made me feel out of place. Just me. A few sundresses, my camera, and a whole lot of quiet. That flight to Portugal wasn't some spur-of-the-moment decision. I planned it on purpose. I refused to sit around at home stewing, while they clinked glasses and celebrated their flawless little world without me. I didn't want to doom scroll through their filtered wedding photos, pretending it didn't sting while my chest tightened up. What I needed was space, real physical space. So I gave myself the one thing they never managed to offer. A way out, no explanations required. I reserved a tiny whitewashed villa in Madeira, the kind with a view so wide it made everything behind me seem small. The morning I left, my mom sent a text. "We'll miss you this weekend. Hope you find what you're looking for." I stared at her message for a long time, not because it moved me, but because she honestly didn't get that what I'd been searching for was already gone. Things like respect, a sense of belonging and safety, they'd chipped those away, one quiet jab at a time, long before my name disappeared from the wedding list. I didn't bother replying. Instead, I zipped up my suitcase, powered down my phone, and called a ride to the airport. On the plane, I watched the sunrise with my own eyes, not through a camera, not for social media, just me and the sky. For the first time in ages, I wasn't bracing for my phone to light up with another guilt trip or a passive-aggressive dig. When I landed in Portugal, nobody was waiting for me, and honestly, I felt lighter than I had in years. I wandered those narrow, blue-trimmed streets, sometimes barefoot, letting the heartburn welcome me without asking me to change a thing. One afternoon, I bought myself a simple gold ring from a market stall. Nothing flashy, just something lovely and whole, kind of like the person I was finally learning to become. That night, I posted a photo, my hand on a balcony rail, the ring catching the sun, a glass of wine in the background. The caption was simple. "Turns out peace looks better when you don't need permission." No names, no drama, just the truth. The comments started rolling in almost right away. Some were from friends, some from family. And then I saw a name I hadn't thought about in months. Lily, my brother's fiancée. "Wow, you look radiant. Hope you're doing well." I didn't write back. But I smiled because somewhere out there someone was realizing I wasn't sulking in my bedroom. I wasn't mourning an invitation that never showed up. I was out there living. And I wasn't going to beg them to notice anymore. I'd just keep making it impossible to ignore me. Madeira didn't feel like payback. It felt like taking my life back. Every morning I'd throw open the balcony doors and let the warm, salty breeze rush in, so different from the heavy air of my childhood home. I didn't check the wedding countdown. Didn't peek at the guest list. I wasn't avoiding it, I'd just outgrown it. Instead, I took photos, not selfies, but shots of the ocean spilling over white rooftops, olive trees swaying in the wind, and sometimes a picture of myself smiling for no one but me. I posted them quietly, no hashtags, no attention-seeking captions, but people noticed anyway. The first comments were light. "You look so peaceful. Living the dream. Weren't you going to Mason's wedding?" That last one came from an old classmate, someone who meant well but didn't realize the story had changed. I didn't answer, but I could feel the questions multiplying back home. While I floated in the Aegean, my absence was starting to ripple through their perfect little picture. I hadn't planned any of this. I didn't need to. All I did was step out of the frame, and suddenly the whole image lost its shine. My cousin Zoe texted, "They're acting weird. Everyone's asking where you are. Even Lily looks confused." Then another, "Did you really go to Portugal?" I sent her a single photo, my feet in the sand, a white chapel in the distance, the ocean stretching out like a promise. She replied with a heart emoji. No words, just understanding. Zoe always saw me. She never spoke up for me, but she never joined in on the jokes either. The next night I posted again. A picture of my dinner table, just one plate, one glass of wine, the sunset painting the wall behind it. The caption read, "Some tables are better when you sit alone." That one hit differently. I didn't tag anyone, didn't mention the wedding, but within hours my inbox was full. Family, friends, coworkers, even Lily's maid of honor, who I'd only met once, messaged me, "Wait, why aren't you at the wedding?" That's when it hit me. They hadn't told anyone. They just quietly cut me out like I was the problem, thinking their perfect story would hold up without me. But now their silence was starting to crack because I wasn't hiding in shame. I was shining in Portugal. Every photo I posted, every small joy I shared, made their version of the story harder to sell. They could call me dramatic until I looked peaceful. They could say I was selfish until I looked free. They could claim I wasn't missed, right up until people started asking where I was. And just like that, the girl they tried to erase became the headline they couldn't control. The day of the wedding came and went, and I didn't reach out to anyone. But the quiet I left behind? That arrived right on cue, and it was louder than any speech I could have given. I woke up late, the Greek sunlight pouring across my sheets. No alarm blaring, no schedule to keep, no dress code or last-minute nerves. I wandered over to the window, bare feet on the cool tile, and just stood there, soaking in the way the white rooftops glowed in the early light. Back in Virginia, they'd be getting ready, lining up for photos, the ceremony about to start. I made myself coffee, ate breakfast slowly and watched the ocean shift from blue to silver, like it was breathing right along with me. When I finally picked up my phone, it wasn't to check for wedding updates, it was to share my own morning. I posted a quick video, the bay stretching out, my hand reaching for my coffee, my toes skimming the pool, and the caption, "Peace. No RSVP required." I didn't think twice about it, but by midday, Zoe was texting me again. "Things are weird. People keep asking where you are. Your name's come up twice and dinner hasn't even started." Not long after, Lily's dad just asked Mason why his sister isn't here. Mason just said, she had other plans. I actually laughed out loud. He wasn't lying, but he sure wasn't telling the whole story. And nobody else could fill in the blanks, because they'd never imagined I'd be anything but invisible. Instead, I'd become the question nobody could answer. Meanwhile, the wedding wasn't going the way they'd pictured. Zoe kept sending me updates between snapshots of my grilled octopus lunch and a boat ride I'd booked on a whim. People are confused. Aunt Linda's trying to make excuses, but she doesn't know what happened. Lily looks stressed. Your mom's pretending everything's fine, but she can't sit still. Then came my favorite. Your post is making the rounds. I swear Mason's jaw locked up. I didn't text back right away. I just let the ocean breeze wrap around me, softer and kinder than any apology I'd ever gotten. Sure, the wedding happened without me, but apparently my name was still floating around the room like a ghost. There was an empty seat at the family table that nobody wanted to claim. No one wanted to say out loud why it was there. That chair wasn't just empty, it was mine, and it echoed through the whole night. Zoe's last message before bed. Everyone saying it felt off. Pretty but cold. Like something important was missing. I smiled to myself because I wasn't missing. I was exactly where I needed to be. The next morning, I laced up my sneakers and hiked a rocky trail along the cliffs, the ocean stretching out forever below me. I didn't check my phone, didn't scroll for wedding photos, didn't care about the ceremony I'd been cut out of. I already knew what mattered. They noticed I was gone and they didn't know how to explain it. For so long I thought I was the problem in their perfect family portrait. I was the one who felt too much, the one who couldn't just let things slide, the one who always made things complicated. But the truth was, I wasn't difficult, I was just honest. I saw things they wanted to ignore. I called out the stuff they'd rather sweep under the rug. I remembered every time someone was hurting and nobody reached out. I was the one who said, "This isn't right." They didn't leave me out because I didn't fit. They left me out because I didn't play along with their story. The story where everything was fine, where nobody ever got hurt, where our family was flawless. But you can't build a fairy tale on top of someone who keeps telling the truth. That's why they needed me to shrink, to be quiet, to be grateful for whatever scraps of love they offered. I used to think my feelings made them uncomfortable. Now I know it was my honesty that rattled them. And the moment I stopped begging for a seat at their table and started building my own life, the whole thing started to unravel, not because I tore it down but because I stopped holding it together. People like me were the ones who keep families running in the background. We smooth things over, remember the details, send the first apology even when we're not wrong. And when we finally stop, the weight lands where it always should have, on them. That week in Portugal I wrote more than I had in years. In a little leather journal I picked up in Porto Santo, I wrote a letter to myself. You're not too much. You were just surrounded by people who wanted less than you had to give. And for the first time I actually believed it. I realized I didn't have to be smaller or quieter to deserve a place. I just needed a new table, one where love wasn't a reward, where being included wasn't a prize, where I didn't have to trade my voice for a seat. On my last night in Portugal, I watched the sun sink into the ocean, the sky on fire. Nobody called. Nobody apologized. And for once I didn't need them to. I'd finally given myself the peace they never could. 3 days after the wedding, the photos started popping up all over social media. I didn't go searching for them, they just showed up, tagged by mutual friends, liked by relatives I barely remembered, all wrapped up in those bright white filters and fake gold sparkles. Mason and Lily looked perfect. Every pose just right, their smiles matching, hands folded together like they'd never had a bad day in their lives. But I could see something else in those pictures because I know my brother. I know the way his jaw tightens when he's anxious, the way his smile only reaches the top half of his face when he's forcing it, the way he leans away just a little when he feels like something's missing. In every shot he looked like he was holding something back or maybe trying to keep something from falling apart. It wasn't me who pointed it out first. Zoe texted me late that night, no hello, just, you were the glue, you know. I stared at her message for a while before I replied, I know that now. She sent another. It felt hollow. Pretty but hollow. That stuck with me because for all the money they spent, the fancy food, the flowers, the $10,000 photographer, what they couldn't buy was the energy, the connection, the warmth that fills a room when everyone actually wants to be there. From what Zoe told me, the day went off without a hitch, at least on paper, but people were whispering. Aunt Linda asked 3 different people if I was just running late. Lily's cousin pulled her aside and said, didn't Mason's sister help plan the engagement party? Why isn't she here? Apparently, my name came up more than the groom's father's speech and nobody had a good answer. I'm sure they tried to explain it away, maybe blamed my moods, my sensitivity, maybe even said I was traveling, but nobody really bought it. Because when you're the one who's always there, always planning, always holding space, your absence isn't something people miss quietly. It's obvious. And I didn't need to rub it in. I didn't need to post a final photo or drop a clever line or take a shot at anyone. I'd already said everything I needed to say just by not showing up. They expected me to be angry, to make a scene. Instead, I gave them silence. And that silence was louder than anything I could have shouted. That week, I printed out one photo from my trip. It wasn't the most dramatic one, not the yacht, not the ruins, not the sunset over the cliffs. It was just a simple picture. My bare feet in the sand, a glass of wine next to me, a closed book on my lap. Stillness. I bought a wooden frame and hung it right where the old family photo used to be. I didn't hate them. I just wasn't carrying them anymore. And in that quiet, something inside me softened, not the part that wanted to be included, but the part that finally understood why I never really was. I wasn't made to be a background character in a story I didn't write. And I'd finally stopped auditioning. Somewhere along the way I stopped checking for their messages. It wasn't a conscious choice. It was just a shift, something inside me rewiring itself. I didn't need to know what they thought anymore. I didn't need an apology or an explanation, or even a reason for why they did what they did. Because I finally understood something nobody had ever said out loud. I wasn't the problem. I was the mirror. I was the one who reflected back everything they didn't want to see, the favoritism, the coldness, the silence. They could keep their family drama going as long as everyone agreed to pretend. But I didn't. I asked questions. I called things what they were. I didn't laugh at the jokes that hurt. I didn't play along when someone tried to rewrite the past. And for that, I got labeled as difficult, as too much, as someone better left off the guest list. Because if I was in the room, someone might have to face what they'd spent years hiding behind fake smiles and empty toasts. They didn't want healing. They wanted harmony, even if it meant keeping quiet. I used to think I had to earn my way back in, be easier, be nicer, be less. But the truth is, I could have shrunk myself down to nothing and they still would have found a way to say I was too much. Because the real problem wasn't me. It was that I saw them clearly and didn't look away. And once you stop looking away, you stop fitting in. So I built a life where I didn't have to. A few months after the wedding, I hosted a dinner at my place. Not a big party, just a small get-together. 6 people. Zoe was there, of course. Riley, my old roommate, came, and Morgan from work, who always brings a little sunshine with her. A couple I'd met at the wine shop showed up late with homemade bread and 2 extra chairs. We crowded around my little table, passing dishes and laughing like it was the only thing that mattered. There were no speeches, no performances, just real, easy laughter, the kind that bubbles up from your chest and doesn't care who's listening. At one point, Zoe leaned over and said, "You know, this is what family feels like." And I nodded because she was right. Family isn't just the folks who show up when you're useful to them. Real family is the people who make space for you, even when all you have to offer is your whole flawed self. Sometimes I still think about that wedding, but not with any sadness or anger, just a kind of calm understanding. They'll always have their own version of what happened, how I decided not to be there, how I pulled away, how I made a big deal out of nothing. That's their story to tell, and I'm fine letting them have it. I've got my own version, and it's softer, but it's honest. My story is about finally walking away from a table that only ever served up guilt and second-guessing. It's about sitting alone on a balcony in Portugal and realizing I was never too much. I was just surrounded by people who didn't know how to love someone like me. My story is about becoming a woman who doesn't need to be seen by people who never really looked at her in the first place, because now she finally sees herself. I know now I was never the problem. I was just the reminder of everything they didn't want to face, the things they ignored, the love they lost when they pushed me out. These days I get to choose where I go, who I let into my life, and what I build for myself. And every time I choose peace, the kind that doesn't come with conditions or apologies.